is a high-risk behavior.
Have you ever heard the quote, "It's not the destination, it's the journey"? Ralph Waldo Emerson seemed to be onto something that I think many of us miss while we are navigating to a new destination in life. The place that we are going, our future destination, could be a place where we are hopeful of arriving at. That destination may represent a change that our mind, body, and spirit have been calling us to make. That destination may serve as the difference between the new you and the old you. And when this quote comes to mind, for me, it is a reminder to slow down and to remember the richness of life, even when that richness contains both positive and negative experiences. This quote reminds me that if I focus solely on getting to my destination, I will miss the pit stops of life that add value to where I am going in the first place. It's not the destination suggests that where you are headed matters more because of the things that you will encounter on the journey towards what is promised. Your destination is the end point, but your journey is really the point. Welcome to the podcast, High Risk for Heartbreak. I am your host, Christina, and I'm so glad you decided to join me today. If you are new here, I pray that you find value in at least one thing I say today. And to my old and faithful returning crew, you know just how much I appreciate you. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button to stay in the know about all of the content to follow. And if you like this particular episode, please let me know by hitting the thumbs up. It keeps me informed about how to better tailor this channel for you. There's a quote that I use on this show that serves as a destination, not a literal one, but a state of being or a mindset, or what I like to coin as a heart set, and that is high risk for heartbreak. Arriving at a destination of high risk is not what it immediately sounds like. And for many of us, I think that's a place that most of us probably wouldn't want to travel to. It doesn't sound like a vacation in the Caribbean or a weekend trip to the next major city, things that I think we can unequivocally deem as positive. It sounds like a scary place, one that exposes you and by chance may deliver you to an unexpected end. Becoming high risk for heartbreak is a narrow path to travel, and I acknowledge that. As I thought about what it meant for me to heal from my last heartbreak, it was that I wanted to get to a place where my past wounds had no hindrance on my ability to love others in both new and old relationships. A place where others who had no responsibility in the breaking of my heart in the first place did not reap the wounded parts of me. Ideally, my future person and persons for other types of relationships would have the benefit of receiving love from a fully healed version of myself instead of fragmented shards of glass that my heart had become from my last heartbreak. Becoming high risk is only risky for me, not for those being loved by me. When someone looks at something as a risk, generally they think of that thing as having the capability to expose them to some level of harm or danger. When I think of becoming high risk, I think of positioning myself in such a way on a heart level that it mimics the exposure that Jesus had to others. High risk for heartbreak is not martyrdom, putting your life on the line for others to use you up and abuse you. Rather, this is a risk that is a necessary one to help you navigate to the destination in your relationships that's capable of the fullness of what God intended you to have in the first place. Abundant love. High risk for heartbreak is like a GPS, recalculating the route to the destination we are all seeking. Abundant love, trust, wholeness, safety in our relationships. This recalculation is not changing your destination, but the route that you take so that your wounds don't travel with you. We often look at our heartbreak as glitches on the route towards our final destination of love, not factoring in the capacity to be wounded is a real thing. Because of this type of guarded thinking, the actuality of love has been stifled. And I believe that is how a lot of people are living today with this fragmented heart, right? That is offering the available version of itself, but stifling and cutting off the fullness of love that God intended for us all. Expecting a smooth ride to love is not inherently bad, but it is incomplete. Having said all of this, with absolute sureness in my heart, the personal journey to that abundant love can be rocky. and can be undulating, and it has the qualities of ebbing and flowing. And that is what I want to discuss today. The journey towards healing from heartbreak is one of ebb and flow. So let's relate. Every now and then, I get strong waves of emotion that come over me. Sometimes the waves contain thoughts about my family and my friends and my gratitude for how they show up for me. Other times, I'm so thankful to still be among the living. And I probably think that the most, to be honest. And you may find that to be morbid, but it keeps me grounded day to day in my thankfulness of life and all of its experiences. Each morning, my eyes open. I am so incredibly grateful, particularly because I've had a pretty major close call some years back, and my perspective of the value of life has just shifted a lot. There's another wave that sometimes reminds me that healing is not linear, and that wave is heartache from my past breakup. Thankfully, it doesn't come over me often anymore, and I think now acts more as a marker of time past than anything else. But sometimes I find myself so deep in thought. I find myself rehearsing the most memorable scenarios that I encountered. I talk them through like I could have done it over or something so that I can say the thing that I really wanted to say or something. I follow this GPS, memorizing the route that it took me again and again to see why the destination didn't turn out differently. In these moments of remembering, I'm ebbing and flowing between present day and past. And that can be a little bit tough and has been for me in this last week for whatever reason. My ex and I got a dog together who I now have sole custody of, and I know that sounds very silly, but you would understand it unless you've gone through it. Highly unadvisable, by the way. Please do not acquire fur babies with romantic partners if you don't intend on taking care of them alone, okay? I'll explain that more in a moment, but here we are. After he and I split, I knew immediately that I was going to be the caretaker of our dog. He had him for a month or so until I could get settled into my new place. And of course, I've had him ever since. And there are times when waves of emotion come over me because my dog was our dog. He was what I looked at as our investment. We would train him together, groom him together, play with him together, the general things, of course. But I was reminded a few nights back of those long walks that he and I would take. It was him, our dog, and myself. We would have these brainstorm sessions about our future plans and work through the current ones that we were working on. He, our dog, and me would just walk. And we would walk and walk and walk for hours around the complex that we were living in. And in the nighttime cool of the summer or the winter, we would just walk. We would walk our route over and over, switching who had the dog's leash and who was walking the dog. And we would just talk and talk and talk some more. This probably sounds pretty insignificant to you, but those things we were working out during our walks, those things, all of those plans that we were sorting out are no longer happening. That destination that we planned to arrive at was not the destination that we ultimately arrived at. Now, I don't know if you have ever had this happen, but there would be times when we would run the GPS on each other's phones, right? Mine on mine and him on his, and it would take us two different routes to the same destination while traveling in the same car using the same app. Those destinations for me were specific to that relationship. They were an amalgamation of all of our best efforts as a couple, containing both great and horrible ideas, okay? They were our ideas, though. They were significant to us in that time, and that's why we put so many steps in on those walks towards those ideas. So now, my dog and I go on our walks by ourselves. One less part of the family that my dog came into. And I sometimes wonder how stressful that breakup was for my dog. Like, does he understand? And this may sound so silly if you are not an animal lover or owner. Sometimes I just wonder if he was stressed when I was stressed, if he was trying to manage my stress when I was stressed. And my dog, he is a chocolate poodle, toy poodle, and his coloring has changed so much since the breakup. Like literally when the breakup happened, he went from this like rich chocolatey brown to he's now almost white. But I know some of that has to do with the coloring of his parents, but I wonder if it like stressed him because he's a very young dog. So anyway, I just sometimes wonder if he understands. We walk though towards a new destination now. Every day like clockwork, he gets 10 to 15 minutes in the morning, 20 to 30 minutes in the PM, unless we go on longer walks. And sometimes when I'm walking him, I am reminded of how I never intended to be doing this walk alone. I'm reminded of the plans and the destinations we never arrived at. I am overcome with emotional waves of sadness and gratitude for the things how things turned out. And sometimes I'm really tired, but I still get out there and I walk my investment because we have a journey to take. Admittedly, I don't always know how to enjoy that journey because of these waves of remembering that take me up and down. And they take me backwards and forwards between present day and past and present and back. And I sometimes wonder if these are symptoms of dwelling on things of the past because it doesn't happen always. So I think it's just part of the healing process. It's not even really happening most of the time, to be honest, when I think about these things. It's just waves here and there that overcome me with sadness. Something might remind me of my past moments that were beautiful, and those moments are now encapsulated in time of the past, never to be alive again. They are scarred over. Many episodes ago, I talked about the nature of how wounds heal. This process has a few steps that are necessary to deliver us to total healing. The first is that you have to stop the bleeding. When it comes to heartbreak, this one is going to be a very chaotic time depending on the severity of the trauma to your heart. And for me, I had to seek refuge away from what caused my heartbreak. I had to isolate my wound from the source. Secondly, your wound will become inflamed. This happens after the initial blow to your heart has happened and you become protective. You become sensitive to who you let in, and that wounded area becomes susceptible again to hurt, to infection. And I think that this time for me was the longest stage. I think this stage lasted a year and a half. I mean, I lost and I gained so many relationships during that time because I was highly inflamed. I was an emotional wreck. I was in shambles a lot of the time, just kind of going through bargaining with the past and present. It was really terrible, you guys. It was really terrible. And I'm not going to pretend like it wasn't. This portion of my healing was absolutely the worst time for me. And maybe you can relate if you have experienced heartbreak on any deep level for yourself. It's my belief when it comes to the matters of the heart that this is the stage of the journey that most people are encapsulated in. Inflammation. They're inflammatory in their thoughts and actions towards others, even when they have had nothing to do with the initial wound. And I found myself there in a couple of my relationships, not knowing how to filter my emotions. I was just a ball of them. And there are people I think that I hurt during that time, which I think, now those relationships, while they may not be restored, they are better than they were. The last part of the healing stage is you will start to rebuild. Now you're stronger. You're less of a ball of chaos and more concerned about your well-being than the injury itself. Before you were hyper-focused on the injury, right? And now you are more focused on your health and the future. Your heart believes that life is good again. And you live in this present and this future tense of life more than you were living in the past. This is when the scabs begin to fall off and you start to receive the scars, right? You start to receive those reminders of what once was. And you may even become protective in your healing, meaning that you will lose relationships like a scab falling off because those relationships don't offer healing for you. Then suddenly, guess what happens? A wave interrupts your healing. Maybe you find out new information, or you have accidental contact with the breaker of your heart. In my case, that would be my dog. I think sometimes reminds me of my heartbreak. Because I never intended to have him alone. And this, like I said, has just been a really emotional week for me, of not just because of that. Actually, a lot of different things have been occurring. And this is part of the ebb and flow. While my heart is directed, is compassing towards my future and towards a place where I believe that I have experienced total healing, as I go through these ebbs and flows, they're very real. They're very real. And I had to make this podcast this week because I know there's somebody out there that's going through these ebbs and flows that are just like, dang, how did I get back here? I'm hurting again. You might find yourself looking at all of the different directions of the route that you were taking. And you're trying to work out the recalculations. Like, why did I end up here again? Why am I ebbing and flowing? And then you just accept it. You just accept it and you flow back into your present day. This podcast is a bit all over the place because that is actually the state that I am in. And I wanted to come on and authentically capture this because I don't live in my feelings long. It's not who I am usually, but I know a lot of people do. And this may be the current emotional state that you're in. You're in a sensitive place, that inflamed place of healing. Others of us are being drawn back, ebbing and flowing into that sensitive space. And we need a bit of comfort knowing that this is part of the process of healing. Sometimes we recede, and not because we want to, but because even though a wound has healed over, doesn't take away from the sensitivity of that place of past brokenness. He has made everything beautiful in its time. That means the wound can't last always, and life will become beautiful beyond the heartbreak. He has also set eternity in the human heart. God has given us awareness that there is more to life than the ebbs and the flows. We have to focus for eternity, for more lofty things that are hopeful. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. While we are future-minded, we can't see the entire GPS route God is taking us on. He is more of a step-by-step kind of guy, a faith-by-faith kind of guy. He's not walking all of our plans out with us in one night. While we don't know what the recalculations that God is making is going to do to our route that we're taking, we can trust that we are going to arrive at God's intended destination for our lives. We can trust his route, that it is the most accurate route. And sometimes he allows our heartbreaks to cut deep and our journey of healing to be long. That journey will ebb and flow from inflammation to healing, giving time for the beauty of what God is making. He doesn't need heartbreak to make you beautiful. He did that already in his imagining of you. However, God uses heartbreak to make all things beautiful in his time. That time may be the length of a scenic route, and I want you to settle that in your heart for a moment. For those who are struggling, it's okay if you're on the scenic route towards becoming more like the love that Jesus exemplified. I really just want you to know that I am not above this. I am not beyond heartbreak. I am in the stages of healing through it. And I'm ebbing and flowing right now, right here with you guys. It's not the destination that's teaching me how to navigate becoming high risk. It is the journey that's teaching me that. This journey is teaching me the necessity of a non-linear path to healing and how beautiful it becomes in its time. My heart is for the future. My joy is coming in the morning, though sometimes weeping comes at night. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and your strength. And thank you for loving yourself first so you can then go and love your neighbor. Until next time.
Why don't you stay a little longer? You like what you like, right? Subscribe to the channel so we can spend a little more time together, and maybe comment your thoughts because I care what you're thinking. Love is the risk and the reward.